Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome to my kitchen. Today I want to get you a little behind the scenes look at how I prepared a lot of the meals that you saw in my full day of eating. Those two episodes dropped very recently. If you haven't seen them yet, make sure you go back and check them out. But today I'm going to show you how I prepare a full day of eating. I'm going to show you some of the recipes, and I'm definitely going to highlight some of the kitchen tools that I use on a regular basis to make sure that my cooking is efficient, I can cook healthy, and I can cook in batches that are going to allow me to be on track throughout my week. So stay tuned to see what that looks like. And if you like these types of videos from me, kitchen content, food related content, please be sure to hit the like button and definitely comment below. I want to hear from you what you'd like to see out of this kitchen when we're filming this type of content. So we're going to dive right into the day of eating, and we're starting with overnight oats. Let's go. I have been on the overnight oat train for a little bit now, probably a couple months making this. I find it super delicious. I can pack it full of protein. I can adjust the amount of carbohydrates that I need to fuel myself. I also make these for my wife, and if she doesn't need as many carbs in her overnight oats, I can adjust those by just tweaking the recipe. So I want to show you how I make that. And the first step is getting yourself some mason jars. Now, this is the first kitchen tool that we have a lot of around the house. We use mason jars, glass jars for overnight oats, also for pickling veggies, for our raw milk, our kefir, all the things that we have. Lots of uses for having these with these airtight lids. Glass plus an airtight lid is gonna make things, when you prepare them, last much longer in the fridge. So I can prepare 4 to 5 days of overnight oats for myself and my wife, and they will last in the fridge without going bad, without tasting weird. They'll taste just like the day I made them, which is a huge, huge hack if you're gonna be preparing food and if you wanna eat healthy and have stuff quick and on the go throughout the week. So the first plug is get some mason jars. You can get these things on Amazon. This one is the Ball, is the name of the brand. I like to go for the ones that have wide mouths. And this is the 3-cup version. And as you can see, we have lots of different sizes: small, medium, and large. Overnight oats, the first ingredient is gonna be your oatmeal. Now, I use oat flour. Why oat flour? That's the question I get asked a lot. Well, oatmeal and oat flour are exactly the same thing. All you gotta do to make oat flour is you come over to your kitchen blender, and we use the Ninja blender because it's got this attachment, plus it's got a single serve attachment that drops right in here. And having a good blender that's gonna get you access to smoothies, to blending up oatmeal into oat flour. There's a lot of different uses that come into handy with this. So I highly recommend having yourself a high quality blender next to those mason jars. So those are the first two tools that you wanna have in your kitchen. Now, all I gotta do to make oat flour is I take oatmeal. This is just basic rolled oats. I throw it into the blender and I turn it on high and I let it turn into a powder. This is the first ingredient that you're gonna put into your overnight oats. The second ingredient, in my opinion, has to be protein. I wanna make these protein rich. I'm gonna start every meal with protein at the center focus. And so overnight oats might have a lot of carbs in it from the oatmeal and what other ingredients you put in. But I like to go with a high quality protein powder. This is a mixture of egg white and whey protein. You can pick which proteins that you like, but that seems to work for me. I just think with protein powders, get something that has minimal fillers, other ingredients, and a protein that you digest well. Something that tastes good, that you digest well, you're gonna be much more likely to use it. Is there a best one out there? Maybe there's an argument for one versus another, but you gotta go with what's gonna work for you. I also like to get collagen in my overnight oats. Collagen is another type of protein that has a slightly different amino acid profile. It complements the whey and the egg protein really well. I mix both of those in with my overnight oats. Okay, the next ingredient, and this is now starting to get into the optional ingredients for you. I like to have fruit. I like bananas. My wife likes apple in there. Just another carbohydrate source. So I've got the oats, which is more of like a starch, slow digesting. Then I put in some fruit, maybe to get a little bit more carbs in there a little quicker. If I have a combination of oats and fruit. This makes for a perfect pre-workout meal for me and gets the carbs into my system at the right time when I'm going to train. So I add some banana. Then you can make the choice of, do I add fats? Do you want to add fats or not? If I'm having this a little further away from my workout, I like to have a little bit more fat in there. So I reach for almond butter or peanut butter, or some people put in flax seeds or chia seeds. This is another good source of healthy fats to put in with your overnight oats. The next ingredient, and this is completely optional, I like to put in a little bit of fiber. This is a prebiotic called Fibermen from the company Thorne. I have no affiliation with them really. I just like it. It gets me about 5 to 10 grams of fiber to add to my overnight oats. Changes the consistency a little bit. I like it. This thing is actually pretty high in fiber for me, which does me well because I have this about 2 hours before I actually train, 2.5 hours before I train. So it holds me over until training time. Last but not least, you gotta have a liquid. A lot of people like to use milk or plant-based milks like nut milk, oat milk, things like that. You can just mix it with water, but you need enough water to cover all of your ingredients and to mix it up and make it into a kind of a liquid slash, solid combination. The more liquid you put, the more watery your overnight oats are gonna be. The less liquid you put, the less watery it's gonna be. This is now a texture thing. What do you prefer? What do you like? I like mine to be a little bit more thick. My wife likes them to be a little bit more thin, and then that's it. So you mix all these ingredients together in your jar, you put them in the fridge overnight, you get them out in the morning, you can eat them cold or you can throw them in the microwave, which she likes to do, and eat them hot. So I'm gonna show you how I assemble that right now. Hey, remember, if you're liking this content, make sure you give it a thumbs up, comment below for the algorithm, and let me know what you want to hear about next time we're doing nutrition content. Do you like pancakes or waffles? Are you on team waffle or team pancake? Make sure you go down and comment below. I want to know what team you're on. And why am I even asking? Because we're making protein pancakes or protein waffles, whatever your choice is. I'm going to show you the batter that I made to make my protein pancakes. And then if you want to put it into a waffle, you can, or you can put it into a pancake right here on the stovetop. Now, before we get into that, this is the next kitchen tool that I think you should have, and that is a good food scale. I like this one because it has this retractable screen. So if I put a big dish on here, this screen can kind of slide out and I can add things to that plate and I can still see the screen. There's nothing as annoying as a plate that's covering the screen and you're trying to figure out what the thing actually says, which is gonna work perfectly because as I measure my ingredients right into my blender, which I already told you, you gotta get a blender, it's gonna help us make the batter for our protein pancakes. I'm gonna be able to see the screen right here as I'm putting things in. The first ingredient is oats. So I put in 70 grams of oats per serving. I'm gonna make 2 servings. It's 140 grams. Here we go, all the way to the 140 and right on the money. 140, okay, we got oats. The next thing that goes into this recipe is cottage cheese. I'm gonna scoop this out here in a moment, but it's half of a cup of cottage cheese per serving. So I'm gonna put in 1 full cup of cottage cheese. Now, when you're measuring out things like a cup, so a volume measurement, this actually tells me that half a cup is 113 grams. So I'll actually measure the grams of cottage cheese right here on my scale. Another good reason to have a scale, because a half of a cup of something, if you kind of have a rounded cup versus a not so full cup, can be the difference in almost a half a serving size. So I always recommend weighing things. If you're gonna go the route of weighing and measuring, it's a lot more precise. And then, so we got 70 grams of oats, half of a cup of cottage cheese. I went with the low-fat cottage cheese option just because it's just a way that I can get my fats from other sources, and the other source is gonna be eggs. So 2 whole eggs for this recipe. That's gonna get you a perfect pancake. You got oats, cottage cheese, and eggs. We'll blend that up in this. You can put a touch of baking powder if you'd like, a touch of cinnamon if you'd like for flavor. The baking powder might make it actually cook a little bit better, maybe like a half a teaspoon per serving, and then we'll throw it on the pan, or alternatively, I've got the waffle maker going and heated up, so we'll get a waffle and a pancake, and you'll see both of those here on the channel. Here we go. All right, here we are, arriving at meal number 3 for the day, which was potatoes and egg whites and a little bit of fruit. This was a post-workout meal, so the fat source was very low. There was really minimal to no fat in this meal, and that's something that I like to do post-workout because it ensures that the food that I'm digesting is gonna digest pretty quickly. I have a mixture of starchy carbohydrates and also some fruit, as well as a protein source that's lean, low in fat. So the egg whites I threw onto a pan, just like I'm doing with these pancakes over here. There's nothing that special. Use a non-stick pan so that I can make this and it doesn't just stick to the bottom of the pan. Now, the thing I'm gonna talk about actually is that when I have my potatoes, this is my preferred method for actually cooking them. And it takes a little bit of preparation, but I'm gonna use the air fryer back here, which makes things pretty darn simple. So I weigh out my potatoes, and I actually got these 6 potatoes here, which measured exactly 700 grams. And then I will go to the cutting board and I'll chop them up into even pieces. So something just like that for all of my potatoes. I'm gonna take those all and I'm gonna head on over here, and then I'm gonna throw them into the air fryer. Now, there are lots of different types of air fryers on the market. I like this particular one just because it's got a really big basket and I can throw a lot of stuff in there. I can set it and forget it. So I'm gonna throw all 700 grams of potatoes in here, and I'm actually gonna cover them in a little bit of seasoning that I like. So I'm gonna get out some salt, pepper, and cumin. Those are gonna be my flavors. Sometimes I might even throw in like a spring onion or a scallion just to add a little bit of green and a different flavor, but the primary source of my carbs is coming from these potatoes. I'll toss them in here, and I'll either set them to the air fryer setting, which is like maybe 20 minutes at 400 degrees, or I might put them on the bake setting, which is a little bit lower temperature, for 30 minutes. But I get that going right away in the morning when I'm doing other things, and they're like ready to go as soon as I leave for the day. I can throw them in a Tupperware. A glass container, which I already talked to you about with the mason jars, having glass containers is key. I'll come back to that in a little bit, but glass containers to take to the gym is super important. And so I've got that going, and I'll show you that right now. So one thing I actually forgot to mention is if you want to expedite the process of cooking your potatoes, if you want something a little bit faster, I am not afraid of using the microwave. I use the microwave often in my cooking for heating things up for the kids. I'm not concerned about the health implications of using a microwave thing. There's plenty of studies and research that I've encountered that says it's completely safe. If you don't like that, then stick to the air fryer or stick to the pan or stick to the oven. But I will take the potatoes and I might put them in the microwave for about 10 minutes and they get really soft, and then I can throw them in the air fryer for an additional like 5 just to crisp them up, and it maybe cuts down the total cooking time in half. I can even take those potatoes right out of the oven and I can throw them right into the pan with the egg whites, and they'll cook really quickly. So it's all about getting these things cooked all the way through, and then whatever texture or whatever level of like brownness or burntness that you want from the air fryer, that's what you're aiming for. So I'm gonna skip that option today. I'm gonna go right into the air fryer because I got a little extra time. Pop it in like that, shake it up, close it up, and then we're gonna set it to air fryer. I'm gonna adjust the time, 22 minutes, we'll come back. Meal number 4. This is the one that you saw that was chicken, rice, and more kefir. That's right, kefir, raw fermented milk. I'll talk about that in a minute, but there's 3 components to this, and I bulk prepare all of this stuff. I make a big batch of rice, I make a big batch of this shredded chicken, which I'll show you the recipe here shortly, and then I also make kefir throughout the week. I always have some on hand in the fridge. So let me show you about my rice cooking technique, okay? And this is the next kitchen tool that I really think you should have, which is a rice cooker. If you're gonna be eating rice, a rice cooker goes a long way to make things much more fast and efficient and make your rice the same consistent, high quality, delicious every time. This particular rice cooker brand is a Zojirushi. It's on the more expensive line of rice cookers, but it really makes an amazing batch of rice. And if you want, you can kind of have this thing set to warm after it's done cooking, and it'll keep it warm all day. So you can have some in the morning, you can have some for lunch, you can have some for dinner, which is great for our kids because they love rice. So here's how I would go about doing this. I'm gonna show you a couple things. Back to the scale, all right? Put your rice on the scale and you wanna measure out 200 grams. As you take it out and you plunk it right into the rice cooker, you can see, oh, I've got 173 grams, 200 grams exactly. So you're using the scale for negative weight on that. Now that you've got the 200 grams weight out in there, you have to wash your rice. All right, washing your rice is gonna get a lot of the extra starches off there. It's gonna cook a lot more even. It's gonna be more delicious. So wash your rice, and I usually go with about 2 to 1 or 1.5 times the amount of water to however much rice I have in there. It's kind of a rough estimate, but that's how I'm gonna prepare my rice in my Zojirushi. And when I hit that start button, it's anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes until it's done. If you're cooking more rice, it might take longer. If you're cooking less rice, it can go a little bit faster, but you don't have to do any tending to it. And it's not like you're on the stovetop trying to boil water and make sure it steams correctly. It takes care of it for you. All right, the star of the meal number 4 show is the shredded chicken that goes with the rice and the kefir. And this is a super simple way of making a lot of chicken that tastes delicious. And I'm gonna use the next kitchen tool that I highly recommend, which is called an Instapot. An Instapot is actually, I believe actually it's the brand, but there's really a lot of different companies that make this type of cooker, which is like a multiple different options in one vessel. You can pressure cook things, you can slow cook things, you can, I think you can even steam things in here. You can make hard-boiled eggs. You can do so many things with this tool, and I really like it because I can throw a bunch of ingredients in, and if I need them quickly, I can put it on the pressure cook option, and it'll cook it at really high pressure, really hot, and it'll be ready soon. But for this recipe, I just set it in the evening, and then it cooks all night, and I wake up in the morning, and it's perfect. Now, I'm gonna go through the ingredients, and then I'm gonna show you what the finished product looks like. I'm not gonna actually prepare it all here, but for the shredded chicken, you can go with boneless, skinless chicken breasts or boneless, skinless chicken thighs. The chicken thighs have a little bit more fat. There's a lot more flavor in that. It's really up to you what you want. For this recipe, I actually use chicken breast. So I put in a whole package of chicken breast in there. The next thing you wanna have is a few spices that you like. I've got smoked paprika, I've got raw, onion powder. Sometimes I'll even grab like a generic taco seasoning that's got a number of different flavors in there as well. When I go for a taco seasoning, I really try and find one that doesn't have a lot of added sugar or any added sugar, because that's often an ingredient that's in taco seasoning. But pick the ingredients that you like or the spices that you like. Now, chicken can get dry. It can get really it can be hard to stomach and hard to palate if it's too dry. This is kind of my approach to keeping the chicken moist, especially if you're going with chicken breast. Chicken thighs are gonna be a lot more moist because there's more fat to it, but for a chicken breast recipe, I like to put in more or less a sauce. I cook it in a sauce, and then at the end of cooking, I make sure that all of that liquid, sauce, and chicken all get mixed together and shredded together. So I don't throw out any of the liquid, otherwise it'll be super dry. My go-to recipe for a sauce for this is one of my favorite condiments, and that is mustard. And I take my mustard very seriously. So seriously that I buy mustard in 5-pound bags like this, and I take this and I put it inside this recipe. Now, I don't just put the mustard in directly. I actually make basically a mustard-based hot sauce or barbecue sauce. What does that entail? It's 1 part mustard and 1 part hot sauce. I happen to get this bulk Old Bay hot sauce that is just something I'm trying out, but I've used Frank's Red Hot, I've used Valentina's, I've used lots of different types of hot sauces, and really it's like 1 part hot sauce to 1 part mustard, and that's what's already mixed in here. So I store this. I had half of this as hot sauce, half of it as mustard, and it's this like orangey color right here. I take a bunch of that and I pour it right on top of my chicken with my spices. I close the lid. I put it on the slow cook option, high heat, cook it for 10 hours. The good thing about an Instapot like this or one of these cookers is that that lid is almost like, it's like almost airtight. So it's gonna release some steam, but it's not gonna release all this water. It's gonna stay trapped in there. It's gonna keep it moist. And then when you get done, you open it up and it's like there's still pieces of chicken and all the sauce. You take some tongs. You take some basic kitchen tongs and you reach in and you just start mashing and twisting, mash and twist, mash and twist. And when you're done, you have this perfectly shredded chicken, which has all of that flavor and all that sauce mixed in. And that is what I put on top of the rice. And I drink my kefir right next to it. And that was meal number 4. All right, meal number 5, the last meal of the day. This was a salad with a little avocado on it. And then another Instapot recipe that was my meat sauce. That was the protein for the final meal. So I'm gonna walk you through making a salad, which is not that crazy and nothing special, but I'll talk about a few things that I think about when I'm making a salad, just so I can keep it simple and I can get some good quality ingredients and make it actually taste a little bit better than that soggy, boring salad that maybe you're used to. First, it starts with these glass containers. Now, if you're not taking your food to go or you're not storing it, then you might not need to worry about having containers. You might make this in a bowl fresh for dinner, but oftentimes I'm on the go or I'm taking something to the gym or to work, or sometimes I like to just prep things. And I already mentioned it, but glass containers make a huge difference. These ones that I get are from the company Pyrex. This glass container and this airtight lid make sure that this is going to be fresh for longer. People often ask me, Marcus, how long does your stuff stay fresh in the fridge? Well, when I used to use those really crappy plastic containers with loose, broken lids, things would go bad quickly. With glass containers with an airtight lid, and this is oven-safe glass, this is the 7-cup version of it, I can make food that will stay fresh for much longer in the refrigerator. So, if you don't like eating food, and preparing it days ahead because you can't stand the idea of eating something that isn't fresh, I get it. But if you're like me and you like to prepare things in advance and have things on hand, these glass containers from Pyrex, or there's probably other companies that make them, are a great start. So when I'm making a salad, what I'm gonna think about is 2 to 3 vegetables that I like, and on a lettuce base with maybe 2 other vegetables, and I'm gonna fill up one of these things. Then I'm gonna think about my fats. I wanna get some fats with my salad. You gotta have fats with your vegetables because a lot of the minerals and the micronutrients, the vitamins, are only absorbable into your body alongside a little bit of a fat. So that's gonna be, for me, olive oil and avocado. So those are the 2 things that I put on this particular salad. So I'm gonna get those ingredients in here, add a little avocado, add a little olive oil, and then a vinegar. I like balsamic. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it. It's really complements, a salad for me. And if you want a little bit of a hack for making a much more delicious dressing, then take 1 part olive oil, 1 part vinegar of your choice, and then add a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons or even a tablespoon of mustard. I know you're like, what, mustard? But if you add mustard to your olive oil and your vinegar and you whisk it together, you get it to emulsify and it makes a creamier dressing that's gonna coat and cover your vegetables much more evenly and make every bite that much more delicious. If you just pour on vinegar and olive oil, a lot of times that can kind of like drip to the bottom and it won't actually coat your vegetables. So the mustard trick is key to getting a very balanced dressing that's gonna cover your veggies and make every bite taste better. Okay, here's my meat sauce. This is an example of what it looks like after it's been cooked and stored in the refrigerator overnight. So I would scoop a portion of that out onto my plate. That's gonna go alongside my salad. This is a tomato-based sauce. You can think of it as like a bolognese. It's not elevated, it's not some really great cooking technique. I actually use the same technique that I use for the chicken recipe. I throw about 4 pounds of lean ground beef, grass-fed. I happen to get grass-fed because I can find it for an inexpensive price. I put that into the Instapot. On top of that, I put in some tomato paste and a larger can of crushed tomatoes. Those both go in. Then it's just about seasonings that I like. So I might grab some dried basil, some dried oregano, maybe some cayenne to add a little bit of kick, or some chili flake, and then salt and black pepper. Then again, same thing, set it and forget it. When I open it up the next day, 10 hours later overnight, I just go ahead and I have that same process of making sure it's mixed and mixed and mixed, and all the pieces of my beef that are in there, or ground beef, are really into small, pieces for me, which is the texture that I like. If you like it more chunky, you can keep it more chunky. But that is as simple as this recipe gets. So I've got the simple salad, I got the simple meat sauce, and last but not least, this meal had some rice cakes. Now, you saw me making rice earlier. Like, why aren't you just eating the actual rice? It's like, well, because I like a little bit of crunch sometimes, and this is like a super simple, carb hack. I think you should have these in your pantry if you need carbs on the go. They have literally 2 ingredients, brown rice and salt. And so that makes for something super convenient, relatively high quality, and it's processed and packaged, but it just makes something more convenient for you rather than reaching for a different carb source that might have maybe more calories or ingredients that you don't want. Each one of these rice cakes has 25 calories, 5 grams of carbs, so I can have about, 8 of these in my evening meal. I get a lot of crunch. I can even put some of that meat sauce on top of it, crunch with some protein. It's delicious. So that's my last meal of the day. Look, I hope you got something great out of watching all of these recipes, and more importantly, the actual kitchen tools that I use to make all of these recipes happen, be efficient, and really fill out my kitchen with useful equipment that's gonna make the cooking process more fun and enjoyable. And if you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, drop any comments or questions below, and then let me know if you wanna see more content like this and what that content is that you wanna see. I'll address it in future videos. Thank you for joining me. Take care.